On opening night, when I finally cut the ribbon on my cafe, my husband grabbed the microphone. He smiled at the crowd and announced he was leaving me for my best friend. For Sophie, the room froze. I still had icing on my hands from the cupcakes. I set the scissors down slowly and said 2 words. Check your phones. That was the moment their little secret started to burn. Before I tell you what happened next, hit subscribe. This story goes from heartbreak to a revenge plan that took patience. And tell me in the comments, if your partner betrayed you with your best friend, would you scream or would you wait? My name is Elena. I'm 33. The cafe was my dream. I saved every tip, worked nights, baked until my fingers cracked. When Mark, my husband, said, "You should do it," I believed him. He painted the walls. He wrote investor emails. He told me he was proud. Sophie, my best friend, was there too. She made the logo, tasted recipes, stayed late, laughing with me on the cafe floor. She was family. At least, I thought she was. The cracks came small at first. Mark stepped outside for long calls. Sophie stopped by more and more. They shared looks, jokes, little silences. I told myself it was nothing. I trusted them both. Until the receipts. One night I checked our account. Hotel bookings, wine bars, late dinners. 2 names, Mark Carter, Sophie Lane. My stomach clenched. But I didn't explode. I didn't confront them. I sat still. And I started saving everything. Screenshots, dates, times, messages, a secret file of proof. And I smiled at home. I played the role of the trusting wife. Because nothing makes liars more reckless than thinking they've won. They thought they were clever. They weren't. And the more careless they became, the more proof I had. Tell me in the comments, would you strike right away or wait until the trap is perfect? Because I chose to wait. And soon, they gave me the stage themselves. They planned a party at my cafe. Their big moment. The night they thought they'd shine. But that night would belong to me. Subscribe now. Because in part 2, I'll show you what I uncovered. And how their arrogance became the weapon I used to destroy them. After I read that email, the one where Mark called me a footnote, something inside me hardened. The heartbreak turned cold. And the cold turned sharp. I stopped thinking about pain. I started thinking about precision. If you're new here, hit subscribe. Because this is where the story changes. This is where betrayal meets strategy. And tell me in the comments, would you confront them now or keep playing along? I chose to play along. At home, I cooked dinner. I laughed at Mark's tired jokes. I asked Sophie about her weekend. I even thanked her for helping at the cafe. On the surface, I was the same Elena they thought they controlled. But underneath, I was building something they couldn't escape. The first step was documentation. Every receipt, every transfer, every deleted text I recovered. I printed hard copies. I stored digital backups in 3 different places. I wanted redundancy. Because arrogance is slippery. And I couldn't risk losing the proof. The second step was learning. I called an old college friend who worked in IT. He showed me how to trace deleted files, how to follow cloud backups, how to pull fragments of messages they thought were gone. One night, he handed me a USB. "Everything you need is here," he said. When I opened it, I found their calendar, their secret trips, their hotel reservations, their notes about refinancing papers. It was all there, in their own words. The third step was law. I met quietly with a lawyer. Not to start a fight. Not yet. But to understand the battlefield. She told me what courts care about. Intent. Patterns. Fraud. Adultery hurts, she said. But betrayal plus theft? That's explosive. She walked me through strategy. Let them think they're winning, she advised. The more careless they are, the stronger your case becomes. So I nodded. And I kept my mask on. At night, I would sit in the dark kitchen of my cafe. I'd stare at the espresso machine, the shelves I had built, the mural I painted by hand. And I'd whisper to myself, they will not take this from me. Because they weren't just stealing money. They were trying to erase me. And that I could never allow. The fourth step was allies. I reached out to a paralegal I had once helped during a tough time. She pulled records for me. Public filings. Business registrations. She showed me a string of companies in Sophie's name. Shell accounts. Empty on the surface. But the transfers lined up. My so-called best friend wasn't just a helper. She was planning to be a partner. Not with me. With my husband. And suddenly the whole picture was clear. They weren't just betraying me. They were preparing to replace me. I stayed calm. I posted photos of us smiling at the cafe. I played the role of the exhausted dreamer. The one too busy to notice. And they relaxed. They stopped hiding. They grew bold. Mark wrote, "She'll sign by spring." Sophie replied, "By summer, she'll be gone." Those words were gifts to me. Every arrogant slip was another nail in their coffin. Let me ask you, if you were in my place, would you tell anyone what you were doing? Or would you keep it locked inside until the very end? Comment below. Because I kept it locked tight. Not even my closest family knew. Because sometimes silence is the loudest weapon. As the weeks went by, I started laying traps. I left documents where I knew they'd peek. I let them think I hadn't noticed missing money. I even forgot my phone on the counter, knowing Sophie couldn't resist checking it. Every reaction was recorded. Every careless laugh, another confirmation. And then, I planted the bait that would draw them in completely. I drafted refinancing papers, fake ones, with just enough detail to look real. I left them in a folder labeled urgent. The next morning, they were gone. And by the weekend, Sophie texted Mark. "She's ready. We've won." They thought it was over. But really, it had just begun. Because while they were celebrating in secret, I was preparing my final stage. The place where their lies would unravel. In front of the people they cared about most. And the invitation came from them. In part 4, I'll show you how they walked into my trap, thinking it was their victory. But what hit the table that day left them speechless. Backhand index pointing right, hit subscribe right now. And tell me in the comments, what's worse, being betrayed in private or exposed in public? Because in the next chapter, you'll see how public truth cuts the deepest. The day of the meeting, the air felt heavy. Daniel wore his best suit. Sophie had on a dress I had once helped her pick out. They walked in side by side, smiling like victors. They thought this was the end of me. The day they would take the cafe, the house, the savings, everything. But what they didn't know was that it was the end of them. Before I tell you how it unfolded, hit subscribe. Because this is the moment betrayal flips into justice. And tell me in the comments, would you rather get revenge quietly or in front of a crowd? Their lawyer started first. He spoke with confidence about how Mark had sacrificed for years, about how Sophie had contributed to the business, about how it was only fair they walked away with a share. I didn't interrupt. I didn't roll my eyes. I sat still. Let them think they owned the room. When he finished, my lawyer slid a folder across the table. It landed in front of Mark with a soft thud. He frowned, opened it, and froze. Inside were the receipts. Hotel bookings, bank transfers, emails, screenshots. All of it. Sophie leaned over his shoulder. Her face drained of color. "Where did you?" she stammered. My lawyer's voice was calm. "It doesn't matter where. What matters is intent. Fraud. Theft. Conspiracy." Mark's lawyer shifted uncomfortably. This can't be admissible. But it was. Every page timestamped. Every word theirs. Mark slammed the folder shut. "This means nothing," he barked. But his voice cracked. Because he knew it meant everything. And then my lawyer placed down one final sheet. The fake refinancing document they had stolen. Marked up with Sophie's notes. Her handwriting. Her signature. The trap was sprung. Sophie tried to speak. But the words tangled in her throat. Her hands shook. Mark glared at her. As if this collapse was her fault. But the truth was, it was both of them. Here's the part one didn't tell them. I had already sent a copy of the file to investigators. Because this wasn't just about me anymore. This was about fraud. About clients. About money funneled into accounts with both their names. And within a week, rumors began to spread. A canceled contract here. an investor pulling out there. Until finally, the news broke. Local cafe owners investigated for financial fraud. Names: Mark Carter, Sophie Lane. I didn't celebrate. Not yet. Because I wasn't finished. Sophie always wanted reputation. She wanted admiration. To be seen as the golden friend. The loyal one. So I made sure the people she loved most saw her for who she truly was. I forwarded those messages to family. To mutual friends. The ones where she mocked me. Where she planned to erase me. And the phone calls started. From aunts. From cousins. From friends who once pitied me. They all said the same thing. We were wrong about her. We see it now. That cut Sophie deeper than any lawsuit could. But I wasn't done. Because revenge isn't just about money. It's about making sure they feel the weight of what they tried to do. And I had one last stage left. So here's your cliffhanger. In part 5, I'll show you how I delivered the final blow. The one they never recovered from. The one that turned their arrogance into ashes. Backhand index pointing. Hit subscribe now. And tell me in the comments, what's worse, losing money or losing reputation? Because in the finale, you'll see what happens when both are ripped away. Mark and Sophie had already lost their money. They had lost their clients. Their shiny reputations were cracked and crumbling. But I wasn't finished. Because revenge doesn't end with numbers in a bank. True revenge is personal. Before I tell you how I ended it, hit subscribe. Because this is the part where justice goes beyond the courtroom. And tell me in the comments, do you think revenge should stop at money or go all the way to the soul? Sophie always lived for appearances. She wanted admiration. To be adored at every party. Praised at every family dinner. Called the perfect friend. Mark was the same. He thrived on being the clever husband. The charming businessman. The man people looked up to. So I planned their final humiliation. In front of the exact people they wanted to impress. A month after the fraud investigation hit the news, Mark and Sophie tried to salvage their image. They hosted a community gala. A charity event, they called it. New beginnings, the invitation read. A chance to prove they were still respected. I RSVP'd. And I came prepared. The ballroom was beautiful that night. Lights. Music. Guests in gowns and tuxedos. Mark and Sophie walked the stage hand in hand, pretending the whispers weren't about them. Thank you all for coming, Mark began. He spoke about resilience. About rebuilding. About second chances. It was rehearsed. Polished. Fake. And then, it was my turn. When the applause started, I stepped forward, microphone in hand. Good evening, I said. I won't take much of your time. But I think everyone here deserves the truth. The room hushed. Sophie froze. Mark's smile twitched. I clicked a button. And the projector lit up behind me. First slide, their hotel receipts. Second slide, the transfers. Third slide, their own words. She'll be gone by summer. She's too naive to fight back. Gasps filled the room. Whispers spread like fire. Every eye turned to them. Mark tried to grab the microphone. I pulled it back. Not tonight, I said. You've had your stage. Now it's mine. I read their words aloud. Line by line. Every cruel message. Every mocking plan. Sophie's face went pale. Mark's jaw clenched. The crowd shifted away from them. The same people they wanted to impress were now looking at them with disgust. I ended with the final blow. They tried to erase me, I said. But every dollar they stole, every lie they told, has been turned into something better. That cafe they wanted? It now funds scholarships for women starting over. The life they tried to take from me is helping others rebuild theirs. And then I stepped down. No yelling. No theatrics. Just silence. The kind that cuts deeper than any scream. The fallout was immediate. Half the guests left before dessert. Donors withdrew their support. Photos of the projector slides flooded social media. By the next morning, Mark and Sophie weren't just disgraced. They were finished. Not a power couple. Not respected business owners. Just a pair of liars exposed to the world. And me? I walked out of that ballroom lighter than ever. Because revenge without purpose is just rage. but revenge that rebuilds something stronger. That's justice. So let me ask you, if someone betrayed you this deeply, would you stop when they lost their money? Or would you go further? Until they could never forget what they did? Tell me in the comments. And don't forget to hit subscribe, because there are more stories like this one, where betrayal meets justice, and patience pays off in the sweetest way.